If you're anything like me, coffee is part of your daily rhythm, and so are the coffee grounds left behind. At Roots Haven Grounds, we love turning everyday waste into soil-building gold. Coffee grounds are one of those ingredients gardeners either swear by or completely misunderstand. Use the right way, they can supercharge your compost. Use the wrong way, they can stall it, stink it up, or even harm your soil. Today I want to walk you through the one critical ingredient people forget when composting with coffee grounds, and how getting this balance right can transform your compost pile and ultimately, your garden. This isn't theory. This is practical, hands-in-the-dirt guidance you can use right away. Whether you're just starting your compost journey or you've been gardening for years. Why coffee grounds are so popular in composting. Coffee grounds are everywhere. Homes, cafes, offices, there's no shortage. They're free, easy to collect, and packed with nutrients that plants love. Used coffee grounds contain nitrogen, trace minerals, and organic matter that microbes feast on. This makes them a powerful green material in composting terms. Greens are nitrogen-rich ingredients that fuel microbial activity and help organic matter break down faster. On paper, coffee grounds look like the perfect compost addition. But here's where, a lot of gardeners run into trouble. Coffee grounds are only a perfect ingredient when they're paired correctly. The big mistake gardeners make with coffee grounds, well, the most common one I see, both from my own early days and from folks who write in, is adding too many coffee grounds without balancing them properly. Piles can get slimy, compacted, smelly, or just stop decomposing altogether. This happens because coffee grounds are dense, fine-textured, and nitrogen-heavy. When they take over a compost pile, they limit airflow and throw off the carbon-to-nitrogen ratio. That's where the critical ingredient comes in. The critical ingredient is carbon-rich browns. If you remember one thing from this, let it be this. Coffee grounds must be composted with enough carbon-rich material, often called browns. Carbon is really the backbone of successful composting. It provides structure, airflow, and long-term energy for microbes. Without it, nitrogen-rich materials like coffee grounds actually become a problem instead of a benefit. Browns include materials like dry leaves, straw, shredded cardboard, paper, sawdust, wood chips, and dried plant matter. These aren't just fillers. They're essential partners to coffee grounds. At Roots Haven Grounds, we kinda like to think of compost like a recipe. Coffee grounds are, well, more like the spice, definitely not the main ingredient. So, why does carbon matter so much when it comes to coffee grounds? Well, coffee grounds are pretty fine and compactable. If you layer them on thick or just add them by themselves, they can clump together and form these dense mats that actually repel air and water. But composting is an aerobic process. It needs oxygen to work properly. Without enough airflow, those helpful microbes just die off, and then anaerobic bacteria take over, which causes some nasty smells and really slows everything down. Carbon-rich browns, like leaves or shredded paper, totally solve this problem by creating space and structure in your pile. They soak up that extra moisture from the coffee grounds, keep things from clumping, and let oxygen circulate freely. Even more importantly, carbon balances nitrogen chemically. Microbes need roughly 25 to 30 parts carbon for every part nitrogen to do their job efficiently. Coffee grounds alone can't provide that balance. How to properly combine coffee grounds and browns. When adding coffee grounds to your compost, always think in layers and ratios rather than dumping them in all at once. A thin layer of coffee grounds followed by a thicker layer of browns works beautifully. If you're composting at home, a good rule of thumb is to add at least 2 to 3 times as much brown material by volume as coffee grounds. This doesn't need to be precise. Composting is forgiving, but consistency matters. Shredded cardboard is honestly one of my favorite companions for coffee grounds. It's just so easy to find, breaks down really well, and adds excellent structure to your compost. Dry leaves are another perfect match, especially if you saved some from the last season. The goal here is to make sure coffee grounds are always surrounded, not smothering the pile. That's super important for a healthy compost. Fresh versus used coffee grounds. Does it matter? Let's have a quick myth-busting moment here. Used coffee grounds are not acidic in the way many gardeners fear, so you really don't have to worry about that. Most of the acidity ends up in the brewed coffee, not the grounds. That means they're generally safe for compost and garden soil when used correctly. Fresh, unused coffee grounds are more acidic and concentrated, so they should always be composted, never applied directly to soil. Used grounds are much gentler, but they still behave as a nitrogen-rich green. One of the biggest benefits of composting coffee grounds properly is the explosion of microbial life they support. Coffee grounds are loaded with compounds that bacteria and fungi love. When paired with browns, they create a diverse, active compost ecosystem. So, this microbial diversity is what turns raw organic matter into stable, plant-available compost. And honestly, it's also what makes finished compost such a powerful soil amendment. Healthy compost means healthier roots, better nutrient cycling, and improved soil structure. All things we care deeply about here at Roots Haven Grounds. What happens when you skip the browns? Well, let's be honest. Most of us have learned composting lessons the hard way. If you've ever had a compost pile that smelled like rotten eggs or ammonia, coffee grounds without enough carbon were likely part of the problem. Without browns, excess nitrogen volatilizes, meaning you literally lose nutrients into the air. The pile overheats or goes anaerobic, and decomposition slows instead of speeds up. Instead of rich compost, you're left with a mess that needs fixing. Adding carbon from the start saves time, effort, and frustration. Using finished compost with coffee grounds in the garden is, well, a game changer. When coffee grounds are composted correctly, the finished compost is dark, crumbly, and earthy smelling. There should be no recognizable grounds left, just stable organic matter. This compost works beautifully in vegetable beds, around fruit trees, in flower gardens, and even in containers when mixed with soil. It improves water retention in sandy soils and loosens heavy clay, making nutrients more accessible to plants. The key is that the composting process, not raw coffee grounds, does the heavy lifting. At Roots Haven Grounds, we believe gardening should feel empowering, not complicated. Composting with coffee grounds doesn't require special tools or perfect ratios, just, a little awareness and balance. Every time you add coffee grounds, ask yourself one simple question: where's the carbon? If you can answer that confidently, you're on the right path. This approach turns coffee waste into long-term soil wealth, closing the loop between your kitchen, your compost, and your garden. Final thoughts. Small adjustments really can lead to big results. Coffee grounds aren't magic on their own. Their power actually comes from partnership, specifically with carbon-rich browns. If you forget that ingredient, composting can get, pretty frustrating, but if you remember it, you unlock one of the easiest ways to build fertile, living soil. If this article helped you see coffee grounds a little differently, just imagine what consistent soil-focused gardening can do for your space over time. And hey, if you enjoy practical, down-to-earth gardening advice like this, make sure to subscribe to Roots Haven Grounds, share this article with a fellow gardener, and help us grow a community rooted in healthy soil and sustainable practices.